All right, so get this. Someone discovered that the butcher can actually grow to become essentially a Super Saiyan oversized butcher. I kid you not. We're going to be taking a look at this one and also find out how you might be able to run into the Super Saiyan butcher for yourself. There's some things you can do. If you're lucky enough, you can put all the elements together and maybe, just maybe, face off against the Super Saiyan butcher. Also, the Diablo 4 community is still extremely active, but there's been a surprising development more recently. We'll talk about how fans are currently reacting to the game and what Blizzard can do to keep players around in the long term. And as always, I have a video guide in the description below, so you can skip ahead to the info you seek. I include it in every single video, so check it out. All right, so let's get straight into what's happening with the butcher. This comes from icyveins.com. It goes on to say this one right here, the largest butcher ever. And if we take a look at this clip from Vincente, who posted it, you can see the full thing for yourself. Source in the description below. But my God, you can see the before and after and how big the butcher can actually become. Now, there's some interesting things going on with this and why this is actually happening. Icy Veins gives us the details on how you might actually be able to face off against the Super Saiyan oversized butcher. So it goes on to say this right here. That's big. Luckily, it didn't take Reddit too long to figure out what was happening. It's a pretty interesting theory, as Swiss Army Wolf laid it out. Apparently, the dungeon had the Avenger affix, which increases both the damage and size of monsters near others that are killed. Yep, that's right, the butcher's an Avenger now. Normally, you wouldn't spot the size changes as they're pretty minor on small monsters, but when they're big, well, that's a different story. But yeah, there's certain things that you can do to ensure that you can increase the size of the butcher. If you get lucky enough, you're in a nightmare dungeon with this affix. Check this out right here. The article goes on to further describe this, but it's even more hilarious than that. As the big guy came out, his size, he didn't get bigger as they fought him, and that means that he was sitting nearby as the players killed mini monsters, continuously getting bigger and bigger, only to ambush them when he was this huge. It's interesting to know that the butcher may be with us in our dungeons for a while before he actually shows up, stalking us from the shadows. His boogeyman status just got a lot more accurate, it seems. So I think this goes without saying, but it would be really cool if they tapped into this type of fix a little bit more without you realizing it. You know, you're actually going through the dungeon, completing the dungeon, but perhaps you're making certain elites or monsters within that dungeon stronger. I think that would be an interesting fix in itself. Let me know if you guys agree or not, and it would mean that the elites and certain creatures in that dungeon are more important to kill. But I also think there could be certain gameplay elements where you purposely might want to make certain enemies stronger in this way. Perhaps they drop more experience when they're stronger, or better loot. There's a lot of cool things they could do with this feature in the future. I hope Blizzard really taps into it. It's one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to bring it up today and discuss it. Now, you know, recently it was July 4th, and I noticed that on the subreddit, the numbers just increased concurrently, and it was super impressive. It almost matched the launch numbers, which is saying this game has a lot of staying power despite a lot of the complaints and issues that the game currently does have. However, I was kind of surprised by this post right here. Check it out. It goes on to say the following. 30 years old, I realized that Diablo 4 grind just isn't for me. It goes on to say this. I used to get great satisfaction from running dungeons and looking for loot in Diablo 3. I'm not sure if it's the formula of Diablo 4 or if it's just me getting older, but I'm getting super bored grinding my levels and doing dungeons. The overall experience feels very monotonous after the few first hours, and to think I have to do it all over again in a new season is going to be tough. I did not have that feeling in Diablo 3. I was hooked by the grind, or maybe it's just the color palette and overall pace of Diablo 4 that makes me like this, almost sleepy playing this game. Anybody else in their 30s feeling this? Yeah, you know what it is? It's age. No, I'm just kidding. No, but this post, for real, let's talk about it for real here, has 10,500 upvotes. That's a lot of people agreeing with this one, that they're feeling a little bit fatigued, perhaps, by this game. Maybe the franchise as a whole. I'm not too sure exactly what it is. Sound off if you are feeling this way, or if you're like, hey, you know what? I'm really enjoying the game. I myself, I have been enjoying the hell out of this game through and through, despite some of the issues which I'm going to be bringing up in a future video. Trust me, there are major issues that I want to talk about that I haven't really seen a lot of people referring to. But yeah, there was a response here that got 6,800 upvotes, and this is apparently the reason why people are feeling this way. It says this from Exoskeleton78. It's the loot. It's underperforming right now. There's almost nothing to look forward to. And this response here reminds me of another game I covered. You may remember it. Had a very similar problem, and that was Anthem. That game died off because there was just no loot. Now again, my experience currently with the Barbarian is, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I am consistently finding interesting loot. That might not be the case for you, but yeah, some of this loot, however, is definitely underperforming. It's interesting, it's pretty cool what you can do with it, but it's like, hey, it doesn't match my current build, it doesn't fit with what I'm currently doing, and I know for a fact that even if I rework the build, it's not going to be stronger than what I currently have. And I think that is also a core issue that's going alongside the potential loot problem that people are having with the loot and the classes as a whole, to make sure that there's more build potential through and through. I think that's what Blizzard is going to have to look at. But yeah, there was also this post here as well, which was definitely a response. It says this: why are 30-year-old persons in this sub always trying to mention their age? It's because we've been through a lot. We've seen it all. But yeah, it's not just the audience that's 30 plus. Check this out right here. This is interesting. It says this right here. Sons lost interest. It says, just sharing our experience in the event that anyone from the Diablo 4 dev team is reading these posts. I'm a long-time Diablo player, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and Diablo 4, but both my sons, 17 years old and 21 years old, had played Diablo 3 before as well, though not as much as I did. We thoroughly enjoyed the campaign and the gearing up process to enter World Tier 4. However, both my sons have quit playing at about level 70s mark, as they say it's not worth it. They're complaining that the legendary drops are trash, and the few uniques that do drop are worse than the ones they have currently equipped, 10 levels lower to boot. It's a frustratingly boring grind, and the loot drops aren't enticing enough to keep them playing. They've enjoyed the Hell Tides, Legion events, world bosses, nightmare dungeons, but ultimately found the drops to be sorely underwhelming and insufficient to keep them engaged. It's really disappointing. We spent almost $400 on this game as a family and wish the game was more enticing to play. Thank you for the amazing game and all of your continued efforts in making it better. So, we've heard this before. Once a lot of players reach that 70 to 80 level, they have a rough time finding interest in the game, that renewed interest, and it's definitely a problem. And I'm wondering if Blizzard has a plan to alleviate this problem with Season 1. Yes, we are going to be getting new uniques, new seasonal mechanics, so I'm holding out. We'll see what happens with that. I'm really hopeful that also we get a World Tier 5. I think that would bring renewed interest in the game. But again, it's going to come down to what loot they bring to us, and if it's a lot of the stuff, a lot of the rewards is going to be tied to the battle pass. Of course, that's going to be cosmetic only. That's going to be a problem. So we better have very cool looking, interesting loot that's actually in the game with these updates to keep players around. It's going to be a tough challenge for Blizzard to keep this up for years and years to come. I'm telling you, I'm curious to see where this goes. But again, at the same time, it's interesting because, yeah, we're seeing the numbers. Currently on Reddit, it's about 30,000 people concurrently sitting there on Reddit. And that's pretty sustainable numbers since launch. It's pretty incredible. I've covered many different franchises, and I've seen games that at launch they have like 50 to 60,000 people active within the community, and then within literally a week you see less than 5,000 people active, and that, whoa, something went terribly wrong here. And usually, yes, launch did have a rough time, but we're not seeing that currently with Diablo. We're seeing a lot of complaints. We'll see what happens again if Season 1 can renew people's feelings about Diablo 4. Or I'm curious to see if you guys are even complaining about the game. Let me know how you guys are feeling versus how, Reddit is feeling. All right, so mentioning those complaints, we have this very interesting article right here. It goes on to say this: community complaints and wishes for Diablo 4. I thought this was a perfect follow-up to those Reddit posts. And this one comes from Icy Veins. They collected a lot of the complaints and feedback from Reddit, forums, and various sources. So let's get into what they discovered, what people want changed within the game. Hopefully Blizzard is taking notes. I'm sure they are. All right, so we have this one right here. It says the inventory, first of all, stash space is extremely small, as some are even deciding not to play alts as they have nowhere to put a whole new character's worth of loot. Aspect taking up space is a huge concern, as many just want them to go in the codex instead. Now, elixirs and sigils shouldn't take up bag space at all, but have a separate infinite section. I totally agree with that. Organization of the stash is a nightmare. Aspects of the same type looking the same is the biggest issue, but just finding what piece of gear has what on it is pretty hard. Yeah, you know, that's one of the things I showed my brothers just yesterday. I was like, look at this mess with the aspects. You cannot even tell what is going on here. This has to change immediately. But there's also a quality of life improvements that you guys want to see. Check it out. It says this. The biggest quality of life feature as requested is related to inventory as well. Loadouts. Players almost desperate to get a loadout armory feature like Diablo 3 had. See, that gets me. Why isn't it in the game already? If it was in a previous Diablo game, you'd think they would add it right in there out of the gates. It makes me a little bit concerned that they're like withholding features to make it seem like, oh, we have something new for you all. I don't get why they would do this. I've seen this happen with other games, and it kind of like just baffles me. Now, they go on to also describe how they need an easier system with the Paragon board respecting, of course, highly requested, but also we have this one right here. Check it out. It says practical things that are very annoying. Let me zoom it out a little bit. It says respawning after dying can put you extremely far away from where you died in Nightmare Dungeons. Now, re-rolling affixes at the enchanter does not show possible outcomes or effects ranges. Extracting aspects should give you the items transmog. Sacred and ancient items can be difficult to tell apart in the inventory in Paragon, and respec costs in general are very high. Yeah, it also gets me how similar, I will admit, how similar sacred and ancestral items look. Yes, there's like a different glow on ancestral. I myself can like pretty much tell, but I definitely agree that the color coding on that needs to change big time as well. Now also, they mentioned this one right here that yes, this is important. The Paragon glyphs need to have their name shown on them without having to click them. That's another thing I showed my brothers yesterday. Was like, look at this. Like, I have to literally highlight over every single little item just to tell what is going on here. They were shaking their heads, like, what the hell? Well, why is it like this? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, this is baffling. Anyway, continuing onward, map travel related. The most requested is a map overlay. However, this is extremely unlikely to happen. Yeah, that's true. It is very unlikely to happen, as Blizzard has commented officially that, hey, we would like to find another workaround instead of having a map overlay. Our beautiful world, our beautiful artwork. Some ways I get where they're coming from, but at least have it as an option. That's what I say. If people are requesting it, do it. It's that simple. Now we have this one. Minimap zoom levels. Barricades need to go. The mount needs to be better. It's snagging on everything is a very common complaint. You should be able to bind your town portal where you want. This is related to the below one as well. Better layouts for your vendors in cities, aka just having them all very close to the waypoint. You could partially solve this one with this tip here. Look at that. I love that example right there. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of unnecessary walking in a lot of these towns where like, oh. And, you know, by the way, I find the diversity in the towns to be awesome. You know, I personally love to be able to be in a certain region and go to its town just to have like a different look. But there's some that are just a pain to traverse, and it makes it a lot longer to get things done. Now, furthermore, we have general wide ranging. It says more build variety, more dungeon variety, higher mob density across the board. That is officially coming, by the way. We're going to be getting an adjustment to mob density in the end game. I'm assuming this is going to be for perhaps Nightmare Dungeons, maybe Hell Tides. All they said was in-game mob density adjustments will be coming up here. They're very interested in that. We'll find out what that means specifically. Now, furthermore, it says loot filters, crowd control effects by monsters should have diminishing returns. Yes. Playing the campaign on higher world tiers, aka being able to progress to world tier 3 without finishing it, as in-game world boss in Hell Tide timer. Again, features that should already be in the game. I'm totally blown away. That's not something that is in the game. It was promised that we would have a very easy way to be notified about world bosses and hell tides. It's just not the case currently. But yeah, let me know if there's anything missing from that list or if that list is pretty much on point. Let's get into your top comments from my previous videos. Remember, leave a comment down below. It could end up in a future video. But we're also going to start out with my YouTube members. Remember, there's that join button if you want access to cool emotes and also have a chance to be featured in a video. You have a higher chance of doing that by becoming one of my YouTube members. It's only like $2 a month. But yeah, let's check this out right here. It says, the main resource drain unique sounds a bit meh, to be honest. You get hit hard in high nightmare dungeons. I see your resource draining fast. Yeah, you know, there's many different workarounds for the resource problems. I have found a workaround for my barbarian currently, and it's been great. Let me tell you what, it's changed my build completely. And I do think that there should be other ways to actually have your resource more prominent or drain less in this game instead of being so dependent on specific factors of the game. For example, one reason why my barbarian is so very powerful is just because I found a certain aspect which helps me with my resource maintaining it in battle. And we have this one right here from Hallrigs 4015 who says, I love that you can farm and stash caches for alts, and the updatable codex is genius. With an update to the inventory management including gym bag, this would make the quality of life playing so much smoother. I think the drop rates are good for now. Maybe it's because I'm a casual player, but if we make everything drop better, then we have nothing to chase. Totally agree. Not everyone will be pleased, just trying to enjoy the game. Diablo is life. Justice for Lilith. Yeah, you know, I hear you. I think that they got to be extremely careful about changing certain drop rate mechanics. I remember discussing that about the 6 most chased uniques in the game. A lot of people don't want them to be super rare. But then I saw comments like, hey, you know, I want to be able to play the game 2 years down the road and then finally discover the ultra rare. That's how patient some of you actually are. You want that like jump up and down moment, you know, where you just absolutely go crazy. And then some people are like, that's way too rare. Like, come on, this is ridiculous. I am a casual player, you know, I work, I go to school, you know, I'm busy, I have life things to do, and having loot this rare is just a problem. So seems like the community right now is very much divided in two, in my opinion. Let me know what side of the fence you guys are on about this one. All right, so my most recent video was this one right here. Whoa, big leaks, new class skills, abilities, clan system, and more. World boss loot tip. Check that out if you missed it. A great tip about world boss caches. All right, so let's get into your comments. So we have Leroy Witten who says this, I personally don't like the fact that once you hit level 100 experience, become useless. I think it would be awesome if they added another experience bar at level 100, and when you fill it, you get a special level 100 cache. This cache could include a level 800 plus item or random unique, cosmetics, etc., or even a token system that you could save up tokens to buy exclusive level 100 cosmetics or caches. Nothing game breaking, but just a little something to keep experience slightly relevant. I hear you. A lot of people agree with that. That'll definitely be an interesting mechanic for sure. I have my own thoughts. I think that would be kind of controversial about what could potentially happen at level 100, but I think I'm going to keep that to myself currently and maybe discuss that in the future. All right, so we have this one right here. Old Man 9138 says this, while I would be interested in some of the past features such as set pieces, I really want them to mean something rather than just to be thrown in because people expect to see them. For instance, I'd really wish they would just take the treasure goblins out of Diablo 4 unless they can actually make them worthwhile to run into. Yeah, you know, currently they're definitely worthless. Hopefully, you know, in the live stream that is going to be happening tomorrow, by the way, they do mention some of this stuff because these are core complaints. I've heard the complaint about the treasure goblin many times. Not even worth chasing, like not even worth getting excited about. All right, so there it is. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned here for more Diablo 4 news and updates. I have you guys covered, and I will see you all next time. Take care.